Welcome to Mindful Live number 49. It is the 4th of March 2022. A beautiful Friday, Friday the 4th of March. Nice ring to it. Friday the 4th of March. Welcome to Mindful Live number 49. One more till 50. And tonight we're talking about, well, at least we're starting talking about, as per usual, what I contemplated on today. We are removing some of the restrictions. Gladly. I am not complaining about that. If you were following much of my contemplations, I was against some of those restrictions from the very beginning. I found some of them didn't make full sense. But we are dialing them back now. At least according to this guy needs to be blocked. At least according to our Prime Minister, they are now being dialed back. And many people are breathing that sigh of relief, I think. All right, let's see exactly what the Prime Minister said. PM announces major ease in COVID health restrictions. Public sector vaccine policy shelved. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has announced major changes to the public health regulations, including allowing families to travel in their private vehicles without wearing masks and a hold off on the public sector vaccine policy. All right, as per usual, if you are inside the live, make sure to hit that like button, double tap the screen. However the like button is hit, wherever you are looking at the live, make sure to hit that like button. It gets the video going out there some more. It gets the live going out there some more. And if you are looking at this in the repeat some other time over on YouTube, where you can find it, you go over to YouTube and find Nathan Springer on YouTube, and be sure to subscribe. If you subscribe over there, you'll be able to catch most of these lives. I think the only one missing is Mindful Live number 20 due to some kind of audio problems, but you can go over there, subscribe to Nathan Springer on YouTube, and find all of these there. And when you are looking at the video over there too on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button. The like button matters there too, so make sure to hit it. All right, let's go see exactly what the Prime Minister said. Now, right before we get into exactly how the Prime Minister spoke about those masks, etc., I flashed back in the news to find out exactly what was going on when these mask mandates were put in place. And here's the thing. Do not let it seem like this family cutout wasn't known from the very beginning. From the very beginning, before the mandate was put in place, a reporter asked about families in vehicles. And the answers they said was that it would just be too difficult for them to police it. They just cannot police that. They somehow cannot figure out whether they are family, whether the people in a vehicle are family, whether they are not family. So because of that, they're just going to have this whole broad policy over the entire thing. Forget about it all. Everyone gets that ticket. That's what they said. Now, tell me, if that was the case previously, how is it now that all of a sudden they are going to be able to police it? That's very strange to me. How are they all of a sudden going to suddenly be able to police it? Like they weren't able to tell whether it was family in the vehicle before, but now the family can have that cut out. Somehow they're going to be able to tell now. Yeah, sure, of course. That makes perfect sense, doesn't it? And I am not like I am sure some of those who are more favorable to the ruling government, I'm sure many of them may be of the view that, you know, this was done in an emergency and it was just what they had to do. It was just what they had to do in the moment, and they had to do it at that point in time. And okay, I understand what you're saying, but in the moment, they very well knew of the alternatives. People were telling them of it since then. And yet still they put many people through some punishment by enacting this one-size-fits-all kind of policy. I I don't like that kind of stuff. And then now to reverse it, to allow the families to do it, like if you're like if the families are now getting a privilege while knowing that what you are actually doing was unfairly punishing people in the first place. I don't like that. But what I think this was actually for, the main purpose I think a lot of these policies were put in place for, was just so that the government could say they tried their best. Now, the Express in their article, PM announces COVID restrictions roll back. If you want to, you could go and take in that article. The article has a transcript of the entire speech the Prime Minister gave. Now, it makes sense oftentimes if you want to speak on these things that you read the entire speech. That makes a lot of sense. Sometimes when you read just a headline or just an article telling you about an excerpt from the speech, you may miss out certain things and you may miss out some context from the speech that may be missing. Understood? Understood. Grand. Now, I have read it. Good night, Rhea. I have read it. And within the speech, twice the Prime Minister mentioned that his government did everything that was reasonably possible to take care of people's, to balance the lives and the economy, etc., etc. And I think a lot of these measures that some may have rightfully called extreme in the moment, a lot of these measures were actually done just to be able to say that. So that in hindsight, when they look back from now, they could say that they basically threw everything at COVID. You know, we tried to force vaccines in there. We mandated vaccines, we mandated masks, we mandated social distancing. We did everything we could. Good night, Ricky Mortimus. The topic that we're starting off with tonight, that we're currently talking about, is the rollback of some of these mitigation measures. Some of these mitigation measures that were put in place to help hold back COVID. At least that's what they were said to be put in place to do. That ended up turning into a whole bureaucratic weight that didn't have a lot to do with COVID in the long run. At least that's how I thought about it. But the Prime Minister was making his case, however. Yes, some of them. Let me be clear. Some, not all. The Prime Minister was making his case, however. He was making his case that he did the usual thing he does. I saw, was it Stuart Young said that he's going to speak to the country very soon, and I hope when he does, he doesn't necessarily have to go back over the entire COVID story, because in this speech that he gave in Parliament there, he went over the entire thing basically, which is fine, I guess, in that context, but to me was just a little extra to read. But yes, is my stream stuck over on YouTube? Strange. What the case he was making after he was going through the whole lengthy process of what happened during COVID and the different steps that Trinidad took, etc., 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 the point he eventually got to was that the change we are seeing right now is what is allowing these difference in measures, is what is allowing these change in measures. That change they're seeing right now has to do with the change in the healthcare system. In February 2022, the lowest occupancy levels in this current wave of COVID-19 were recorded. Over the past 2 weeks, overall hospital occupancy has steadily decreased from the benchmark of 40% to 31% as of March 1st, 2022. Madam Speaker, this is the Prime Minister's speech if I'm speaking like him. Madam Speaker, from February 1st to 28th, 2022, a similar trend has been noted across all levels of care and all facilities, including the accident and emergency departments, dedicated to the care of the confirmed COVID-19 patients. As of Tuesday, 2nd March 2022, the following occupancy levels were recorded. Overall national occupancy is at 31%. ICU occupancy is at 31%. HDU occupancy is at 32%. Ward level occupancy is at 31%. I am not sure why the stream over on YouTube seems to be sticking, but it does seem to be sticking. At least the video part of it. Technical difficulties as per usual. All right. As of March 2022, all facilities in the parallel healthcare system recorded occupancy levels well below 75%, which was the benchmark for alarm. As of 8 a.m. March 1st, 2022, within the accident and emergency departments of our parallel healthcare system, a total of only 15 patients were being managed, with 0 ICU level patients, a consistent trend of decreasing admissions to the accident and emergency departments has been noted. Grand. So beside the inherent traits of the Omicron variant, our public healthcare professionals, this is the excuse, not the excuse. Let me use the word the excuse. Sorry. This is the reason our Prime Minister is giving for the change in policy right now. The reason for the change in policy right now is this downturn that he is giving a clear picture of. The chat is doing what the chat does as per usual. The chat will do as the chat will do. All right, let me see if I could just take a moment there to reset this video stream. All right, the video stream seems to be back up and back to life. Grand. We are working well. All right. The PM backpedaling, they're trying to save face. I think they are. I do think they are. And this is actually occurring all around the world. So he was saying that there are other factors that contribute to this. Population vaccination. Trinidad and Tobago began its main vaccination drive in April 2021. By late 2021, we were seeing a slow uptake of vaccines, and to date, we continue to see a very slow uptake in the number of vaccinations received on a daily basis across both islands, despite our best efforts to ensure the availability and accessibility to safe and effective WHO-approved vaccines, including employing various communication strategies. Our progress in this continuation of vaccination of vaccinating the unvaccinated in our population has been slow. He went on to comment on the fact that they had to destroy so many. We would get to that pricing of the taxi fares. Don't worry, I have a story for that coming up. Exactly precisely that. He went on to speak about the fact that they had to destroy so much Pfizer doses recently because they expired, and he was speaking about how this country wanted Pfizer, was clamoring for Pfizer at one point in time, and look at it now, as it were the proverbial knocking dog. No one wants it anymore. This is after the vaccination level has virtually stalled at 50%, and as of this week, over 3,000 people have died. On average, the daily vaccination rate increases by 0.1%. This is the same thing I've been saying for some time now. I have said quite a while now that the whole vaccination argument has been finished. It has been finished for some time now. The only way you are getting more people vaccinated generally now is by forcing them to do it. So a lot of the argument is kind of over right now, to be very honest. Population immunity. Madam Speaker, population immunity is generated via two principal pathways: through vaccine-induced immunity, one, and through naturally acquired immunity following infection, with or without symptoms. Trinidad and Tobago achieved the feat of fully vaccinating 50% of our population, around 700,000 persons, on February 19th, 2022. That means 50% of our population, of 1.4 million inhabitants, have either received 2 doses, yada yada yada. We have also seen the continued rise of infections over the last 4 months, as previously identified. As of March 1st, 2022, we stand at a total of 128,145 confirmed cases. It can be expected, based on our testing strategies, that we can anticipate that a larger proportion of the population would have been infected than confirmed. If one were to assume, for example, that for every one confirmed infected person, 3 other persons would also be infected but unconfirmed, we can extrapolate that approximately 30% of the population has been infected with COVID-19. So you can add that 30% and then add that to the 50% of them that have already been vaccinated too, and you could get the picture that we may actually be close to upwards of 70%, 80%, somewhere around there, because I'm sure there would be overlap between vaccination and immunity. But we are very high up there in terms of immunity, general immunity with the population. And that's actually something that the Prime Minister admits to here. Now, again, these are some things that if you read the headline, you meet only headlines, and you may not have delved into an article that had his entire speech. You may not have even known that the Prime Minister has actually admitted that in Trinidad and Tobago, our population that has immunity, that has workable immunity, whether it be from vaccinated, from artificial, from vaccinated induced, or whether it be from natural, is high, upwards of 80, very likely. And that brings back into the whole scope of herd immunity, which has so many questions around it too, but let's avoid that for now. Madam Speaker, that being said, the pandemic is not yet over. Our greatest threat remains the emergence of new variants. We must remain cautiously optimistic, he says. In addition to vaccines, we now have some new therapeutics to help us fight this disease, and we're expecting additional therapeutics in the near future aimed at treating mild and moderate disease. Madam Speaker, our parallel health system has proven real resilience, etc. He goes on for quite a bit. Let's get into where However, as a responsible government, at this time we cannot afford to abandon all of our public health measures which have served us well throughout the course of the pandemic. Madam Speaker, we are confident in the knowledge that after more than 2 years, the population has, for the most part, the wherewithal to navigate the vagaries of this pandemic. We have taken more risk as the population have become more vaccinated. So I'm trying to see exactly here where he begins speaking about the changes that they are making. Right, this is the statement here. Dr. John Campbell on YouTube is a good unbiased voice on this topic. Yes, he is. To me, he was one of those really solid voices throughout the pandemic. It seems like when he had a change of view, when he saw something new, he changed his view. It seemed like he didn't hold on to something like if it was told to him by his forefathers. It was just something that, as far as the science pointed to, this is what we knew, and that's as it should be, really and truly. Now, the statement I wanted to get from him: Madam Speaker, I am satisfied that the government which I have the honor and privilege to lead has done all that could reasonably have been expected to be done to preserve lives and balance the restoration and preservation of our economy. You see that statement there? I think a lot of the measures where we asked, why would they do this? This doesn't line up with the science. What's the sense in this? Why are they doing this? Why? For example, the cremation bacchanal issue, where I don't think he's right. The cremation bacchanal issue, where they banned public cremations without a scientific reason. Why did they do that? You know why they did that? So that at the end, they could look back and say, we did all that was reasonably possible. You see, you don't have to, when you do a broad sheet, when you do a broad general blanketing thing, when you do a broad, that's the issue exactly there, Rooney. That's the issue there. If you did more, then you did too much, which would undo some of what you did. doing too much is also wrong. It's not like you could do too much and it's better that you do too much in that case. That's actually, I don't subscribe to that. I don't subscribe to that. Like, it's in the government's case, it's always better that they make an error on the side of doing too much. I think my view might be in the government's case, they should make errors on the side of doing less. Because remember, again, to go back to my famous analogy, well, famous to me, or probably to you in the live, the analogy of Gulliver's Travels, where the government is the giant. The government cannot go there and take too many extra steps dancing. If the government is this massive giant in this world of tiny people, and they're saving us from the pandemic, so they attempt to put their hands over us and cover us. We're tiny people. We're on this little mic, and we're the tiny people, and they're going to cover us over and protect us. Oh yes, they're protecting us. But at the same time, if they're a giant and they say, you know what, to really protect you, I have to really cover you hard, and they hold you in their hand, and they do this, and they do this, and then they do this. They say, you're warm and kept safe inside of my hands as a giant to tiny people. That's going overboard. That's what doing too much is. You have so much power that you cannot just go overboard and think that there wouldn't be consequences for it. There are consequences to going overboard, just as there are consequences to not acting enough. That is the difficult dilemma that you find yourself in when you are in a position of leadership. It's just like for a parent somewhere. If you're a parent of a child, there is something such as going too far, even in punishment. A child needs to be disciplined. A part of discipline sometimes is punishment, but you can go too far, and if you go too far in punishment, it gets bad. You undo the whole point of discipline. So yeah, that's my point with this. I think they went too far, and I think the reason they felt comfortable, I think the reason they felt comfortable and willing to go that far was for that precise statement, that at the end they could see they tried everything possible. That's what they went for. Madam Speaker, as we enter this phase of living with the virus and moving towards it becoming endemic, as it has already been declared in some hitherto ravaged populations, they are going to do some of these measures. The retention of masking. Appropriate mask wearing is an essential public health measure which should be retained at this time, especially due to the circulation of the extremely infectious Omicron variant, which lends itself to aerosolization and to significantly asymptomatic and mildly symptomatic disease. I think that statement is counterintuitive. He is saying that Nah, I don't think the economy is dead. I don't think the economy is dead. I don't think it is even close to dead. But I do think there are some people who were severely hurt from their expectations because of what was done. I know some people who were put back years in terms of their plans for what they wanted to do with their life, in terms of economically. Their financial position was put back decades, in their mind at least, because of what was done there. So the economy may not be dead, but for some people, they may see it as just as if it was dead. Now, I find this statement that he made there on masking to be counterintuitive. He said that we need to keep up masking because Omicron is more viral and is more capable of aerosolization. Now, aerosolization makes it into an air particle. Air particles pass through the vast majority of the masks that the vast majority of people are using. How does that make sense? With a more aerosolized version of a virus that produces a higher viral load, how does it make sense that now we must really do masking? That isn't according to the science in my mind. He continued though. In late December 2021, the World Health Organization re-emphasized its recommendation to maintain masks in the use in use in the face of Omicron. As such, mask use will remain in force at this time in all public places and places where there is public interaction. I find that is nonsense. And to quote it from the WHO in the first place, I don't trust those people. And now, if you're looking at the world, the way the world is set up right now, the way the world is going, if the conflicts continue to go, and the WHO already shows itself to be siding pretty heavily with China, things are going to get complex. And now, let's go and look at the CDC. And this recommendation that he is taking from the WHO is from last year, December. If it's anything we would know so far, if it's anything we know so far about this virus, is we need up-to-date information. So let's see the up-to-date information and recommendation the CDC over in the United States gives for masks. Masks, well-fitting masks, offer protection against all variants. Now, when they say well-fitting there are studies that prove what they're talking about there are well-fitting N95 masks. It's not just a cloth mask. It's not just some random little surgical mask. It's a well-fitting N95 mask they're referring to. And here are their recommendations. In general, people do not need to wear masks when outdoors. That was actually known 2 years ago. Just by the way, that outdoor masking thing is nonsense, and it has been nonsense for 2 years now, and it has been known to be that way. Yet we are still here forced to do it. It's ridiculous. Anyway, if you are sick and need to be around others or are caring for someone who has COVID-19, wear a mask. That's the recommendation. If you are sick or if you are caring for someone who is sick. If the COVID-19 community level where you live is low, wear a mask based on your personal preference. If you are at risk for severe illness, wear a mask or respirator that provides you with greater protection. That makes sense. Yes, the CNN lady said it's a face decoration because it is. And it has actually been for a while now. It has actually been for some time now. It's just that it got political and people chose sides based on nonsense. But Tobago Rooney, who says when she forgets to wax her mustaches when she wears a mask. Tobago seems to have a good bit of sensible people. Tobago Chamber, citizens should no longer wear masks. I agree with Tobago Chamber. You know what? I should go over to Tobago because it seems like if Tobago Chamber has that view, I should be able to walk into their businesses. I should be able to walk around Tobago and be comfortable without that mask. I think Tobago is the place to be right now. Tobago Chamber, citizens should no longer wear masks. Tobago Chamber of Commerce President Diane Haddad believes all citizens should no longer be mandated to wear masks in public. She said so on Friday after the Prime Minister made his announcement. In a statement in the Parliament, Dr. Rowley said families will no longer be required to wear it in their vehicles. We know that. Haddad said while she welcomed some of the Prime Minister's announcements, the government's mask-wearing mandate should be lifted in the context of what she observed were violations of existing COVID-19 protocols during Carnival. The Prime Minister's announcements are a step in the right direction. However, we need to take a leap and we need to remove the mask-wearing completely because after the display of what went on for what may have been the legit reason of people celebrating a taste of Carnival, we need to understand that what was permitted was in contravention of all the COVID-19 mandates, and therefore that in itself defies any instructions that should be given to the rest of this country's people. And now, to tack on to that, there's a health expert now saying similar, and now he's saying, I am only quoting him saying it because he's an expert. I've seen many people say the same view. Health expert remove restrictions if COVID cases don't spike. He is saying he disagreed with the taste of Carnival and the bacchanal that went on there, but he's basically saying it was an opportunity. We were able now to, as it were, do an experiment on our population. And if we do not see a spike in the cases 2 weeks out from that piece of bacchanal that went on there, then remove all restrictions. Why should we move piecemeal, and slow with it? Remove all. Just do away with all of them. That makes sense to me. That is what makes sense to me. Now, the Prime Minister, the only way he addressed the public sector vaccine requirement business, his only way of addressing that was saying that the public service will be returning to work and all public servants will be expected to return to work on Monday. And that was his address of that public sector vaccine requirement. After all of the huff and puff, after threatening people, that's how he addressed that. He considered that to be him addressing the issue. You want to know how I know he considered that to be addressing the issue? Because one of the opposition members asked him about it. They asked him very directly. Government is no longer pursuing legislation that could be viewed as making COVID-19 vaccination mandatory for public sector workers. Let's see. When Rowley concluded his statement, Munilal asked him if this meant government was no longer pursuing any policy which could be interpreted as mandatory COVID-19 vaccination. Rowley said he had addressed that issue in his speech based on factors such as the Omicron COVID-19 variant not being as severe as other variants despite being highly transmissible and approximately 50% of the population being fully vaccinated. He said, "We have placed hold on drastic actions because circumstances have changed drastically between mid-December and March 2022. So, I think that is a political loss. That what went on there, I think it's a political loss. That is the best backpedal. My opinion, what do you think about this special? I don't know what to think about the Special Operations Response Team. I honestly do not know, Mr. Jeremy Francis. I have no idea what you are trying to, the opinion you are trying to get out of me there, because I don't know. I have no real opinion on them. They were part of the TTPS. I have general opinions about our police service, but I don't know the inner workings of sort. I never did. And to pick and choose which restrictions they want, the only solution is freedom. I agree. I think, though, as I was saying, it's a political loss. Here's why I think it was a political loss. By announcing that restriction, that measure, he gained no new followers. He gained no new fans. The only people that were fervently in favor of that were very likely people who were fervently in favor of the government in the first place. However, I know personally, as in first-hand personally talking to people, about some people who do lean towards the PNM side, who, upon that statement, drifted further away. You see, I think some people underestimate how serious some people took that anti-vax stance. And to go at it in that measure was just unwise. And I don't think science changed so much from the point in time when he made that statement in December till now, that all of a sudden to realize a forced vaccination measure was not very wise. I don't think the science changed that much. I think it was obvious back then. The same people that were saying it was obvious back then are still saying it is obvious now that such a measure does not make sense and it will not work in the first place. The Prime Minister, in his speech, though, he also admitted that he clearly knows that the population seems to have made it clear which way they intend to go with this pandemic, how they intend to treat with this pandemic, how they intend to... Wow, the video stream stuck again over on YouTube. Yeah. How they intend to treat with this pandemic. The population, the Prime Minister admitted that the population seems to have made that pretty clear. So he knows. And as I said, from that, I think that was a political miscalculation that worked out only as a loss for them. They didn't have anything to gain from that, and they didn't gain anything from it. That's my view. That's my view. In terms of politics, there was no gain from that move. He not going up again. He said that. Then he said something different that, you know, made it seem like it was an iffy thing, and he weren't sure if he is not. It's not a sure thing, and I don't take politicians at their word anyway. So, yeah. All right. That's all I have for now. Technical difficulties are making it even more difficult over on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you are educated, informed, or entertained if you tuned in over on YouTube or Instagram. Thank you for being here. I will see you again Monday for the next Mindful Live, 9:30. See you then. Peace. As usual, I'll be on TikTok for a little while longer. If you'd like